PR is not limited to newspaper or media houses anymore.
This is a slow process. I always tell that advertising is like your, day trading, right? You will get instant results, but PR is like your SIPs. You have to continuously do that for many years to be able to, build that image for your audience and for other stakeholders. I think the PR overall needs a rebranding.
Don't look at it from an ROI perspective. Look at it from trust perspective.
So the startup ecosystem has actually disrupted PR a bit because they were highly demanding.
The critical part there is to make the client understand what news is. That's where most of the conflict happens.
For a startup, what is a good time to start doing PR?
There is no good time. There is always now.
A startup or an established brand should start their PR engagement on the day when they start connect with their audience, and that is day zero.
So I want to tell this to all my, PR peers that we are the voice. If there is a challenge, if there is something that is bothering industry as a whole, please come and support that voice in numbers. You can't be hypocrite. You can't be a diplomatic. Let's not play that diplomacy when it comes to solving a major problem that affects every one of us.
Have you heard of any blacklisted client because of late payments or no payments?
I think empathy, compassion, and homework, all these things have to come together on either side, whether you are in
Yeah.
journalism or you are in PR. Hello and welcome to the show Indian Media with Dhiren Experts. Here we discuss trends and opportunities in the media and entertainment sector that impact careers and businesses. I am your host Dhiren. Today we will discuss what is happening in PR. Joining us on the show are two professionals who started off as journalists and later started their own PR companies. Please welcome Priyanka Pani and Praveen Singh. Before we begin discussing the topic, Priyanka, please tell us our audience about your career journey and what do you do at present?
Oh, thank you, Dhiren, for having me and also Praveen, who is, quite well known in the PR and media ecosystem. So it's a privilege sharing a space with him. I started my career uh, in 2006 as a journalist, with a passion to change the world, to do something which brings revolution. Like we all, as journalists, have this idea that we are changing the world, but we're actually not changing anything. So it has been a great journey for me. I learned a lot. Coming from a science background, I chose to do business PR, and this was quite a learning experience because as a journalist, you're not taught anything. You just get into your job on the first day and are expected to perform. We never had any mentors back then. There was no hand holding, spoon feeding. So we learned everything on. I learned how to read a balance sheet. And not being from a commerce background, I had no idea about what profit and loss looks like. What is EBITDA? What is never knew how to read documents on ROC. So learned everything on job. I would say those 18 years of my journalism career were the best days, of my life. Made a lot of good connects. But COVID was such a period when everybody was trying to do something. And I particularly happened to work on the startup segment. And that is when the startup bug actually bit me. And I also wanted to do something of my own. Like everyone was starting up, and I thought, why not do something on your own? And there was time for me to do some side gigs. But then I finally decided to take that plunge, leave the job, and start something of my own. I had no idea what to do. And as a journalist, you know how to write, you know how to ideate, how to ask questions. So I kept asking questions to me, and I thought, like, okay, let's do something around content. But content is not that rewarding. Then I quickly figured out that when I'm giving this content, I'm delivering the content to clients, they also wanted me to place it somewhere, to publish it somewhere. So that's when I thought, why not make the shift and start doing something. And that's when NutGraph started. That graph means stories in nutshell.
Praveen, tell us about your career journey and how did you started in journalism and what brought you to PR?
Thanks, Dhiren, for having me. And it's wonderful to share this screen with Priyanka Pani, who has been doing so well in PR. And in fact, in journalism, she was one of the names to reckon with. So it's wonderful to share this screen with her. I started off in journalism by accident. I wanted to be a CA, but I could not do that. So one of the easily available option was to pursue mass communications. I did that part time and started working for UNI. From there on, I shifted to PPI. I was editing a lot of copies and getting bored. I shifted to reporting, and for that I had to move on to Financial Express. And financial journalism was very new to me in terms of reporting. I shifted my focus to infrastructure. Infrastructure at that time in late thousands was an upcoming sector, and a lot of news were flowing from there. There was so much work to do that I could sit at home and write a lot of stories for the week. After close to 5 years at Financial Express, I thought of shifting away from journalism altogether because, like Priyanka said, we have high opinion of ourselves that we are doing something great. So we are changing the world. By the time we realize that we're not doing anything, it's just bread and butter for us. We're earning our bread by doing stories. So that was the time that I realized this truth, and that brought me out of journalism into public relations. From 2012 to 2019, I worked for various agencies, and I learned a lot in terms of how you convert your journalism acumen to facilitating those news for the client. And then COVID happened, and COVID derailed a lot of plans for all of us. That was a blessing in disguise for me because that gave me an opportunity to start something of my own. I came up with the idea of starting Strategy Verse. Strategy Verse is basically a universe of strategies that help clients connect with their audience faster. What I noticed was there was a lack of strategic thinking in PR. A lot of news will flow. People would talk about media relations, getting the stories published. A lot of money would be earned through this process. But the dispensation or the discourse on uh, strategy was lacking or was very weak. So that was the area which was unexplored, and it gave me an opportunity to enter that sector, enter that space of PR. So that's where strategy was came into picture. And since then, we have been working for clients ranging from startups to a cabinet minister also. We are helping all these clients with a lot of strategic inputs in terms of how to connect with your audience faster. It may not be only through news because news is one of the tools at the moment. Although various PR agencies would call news as their forte, as their playground, but there are various elements to the playground now. Digital marketing is one of those. Social media is there. Blog posts are there. Podcasts and everything. And the field is only expanding by time. So we still have a lot to do in terms of exploring the field of PR, so to say. PR is not limited to newspaper or media houses anymore. Now we are trying to do that for our clients.
For most people who have started their careers in PR, it's a gradual change for them with which they get accommodated with. But for someone who has started from journalism and then decides to jump into PR, for them, it's a completely different story. The theme of the episode is also what is happening in PR. So when you jumped into PR and where you are now, you have already spent considerable amount of time. There is a lot of enthusiasm from the people you interviewed during your journalism days that has rubbed off you, and you started your own venture. So how is PR now? What are the indicators that tell you the state of PR?
When I shifted from journalism to PR, it was new world to me. In journalism, each individual works independently. There is no teamwork, so to say. But in PR, everything is a teamwork. There will be content writers, there will be strategic thinkers, there will be client relationship managers. So when I shifted, I was straight up I straight away became a manager with zero experience of handling clients. It was a new world wherein I had to learn each and everything. All I knew was content or strategic thinking or structured thinking, if you can call it that. That's what helped me managing clients also, because clients mostly are unaware what information is news or what information can be broadcast to help them connect with their audience. That's where a structured thinker come into play.
I'll quickly get in here. When you started PR, when like all of us got into PR pretty much at the same time, which is like mid 2020s, that way, if I can say so. And we have been trained in journalism with mostly legacy companies, while startups as a concept itself started to gain coin pretty much later into 2010 onwards. So, how do you make people understand what PR is while you yourself started your career in journalism?
In earlier days, it was limited to media. And when I am coming from media, I understand news really well. Because a journalist creates stories out of raw information day in and day out, I can very well help my clients do the same, or I can do it on behalf of my client. The critical part there is to make the client understand what news is. That's where most of the conflict happens. Client would say, if I have appointed a director, that's news for me. It should move my stock. But for journalists, it means nothing. For journalists, it means that the journalist will look at the director's past record, what he or she has done, and knowing how journalists think, if there is any loophole anywhere, they will catch that. So instead of trying that as news, why not look at other angles? Why not look at the portfolio that director will look at? What is the goal that you have set for the director for last couple of years? What goals that director will work upon? Trying to look at the same information from a different angle changes the narrative completely. Now, it's one of the poorest of example that I have given. There are a lot of other things that keep on happening within a corporate, but they are not aware about it. Now, it's the responsibility of the PR professional or a journalist turned PR professional to make them understand that. Now, it was way back in 2000, early 2010s. Now the field has transformed completely. PR is no more limited to media only. There are so many tools and equipment that we have that we can use to connect with our audience directly, that we don't need the level of media relations anymore that we required earlier. But the clients are still fixated on media. Now the challenge is to make them understand how to move beyond media. While keeping media as the mainstay, you can do a lot. For example, LinkedIn.
Priyanka,
LinkedIn is a good source of information for the audience, especially for B2B audience.
mm,
Nobody goes to read Economic Times and decides on buying a service from a B2B player, but they go on research on Google, and if they are connected with the founder of a respective company, they will look at the profile and understand more from the founder directly. That's a good platform.
we'll come to digital media in a while. I want Priyanka to weigh in on this, on
Yeah.
how she is managing the transformation in the career itself, and then the transformation that the sector itself is going through.
Praveen might have entered the space quite early in 2020s, but I came in late, just 3 years ago. PR itself needs a rebranding. It's not any more public relations. When the term was coined, public relations, that era is different. You dealt with legacy companies, you dealt with publicly listed companies. Those were the companies who actually needed PR. Right now, it's very different. You're talking about startups. The word startup actually started around 2007 with the entry of Flipkart and all. Before that, it was just bootstrap companies or companies without funding. I have been covering startups since 2010. I mean, that long I have been in the sector. So the startup ecosystem has actually disrupted PR a bit because they were highly demanding. They wanted everything to be said in just few days. They thought you do a PR and then you immediately become a unicorn. That's not how it works. You cannot build a company, you cannot build a brand, you cannot build your reputation overnight. If that was the case, the Tatas and the Reliances of the world would not be doing PR even today, right? They would be done with PR. We are now bigger companies, we're conglomerates. Nobody needs to know about us. It doesn't work that way. It has to be consistently done. I'm talking from the client side that expectations needs to be set, that what is PR? PR is not just putting out your press release. It is not just putting out your company's development. It's more about engaging with your audience through publications, through media. Media can be different, right? It can be print, social media, digital media, whatever. The entire thing is, how do you engage with them without bothering the journalist? Without, because journalists are not supposed to. They're not on your payrolls. They're not on your payrolls to do stories about you. So we need to, as PR agencies, we need to set those expectations right. Somebody is writing your story. You need to tell them your story. And it has to be that compelling for them to write. You are 1-year-old company. You cannot expect so many milestones to happen in a year. So maybe from clients or companies, they should rethink their strategy before taking a PR. So how to start initially? Just talk a little bit about the problems that you're solving and not about your company. Just talk about your problems. Talk about the why you are existing in this sector, or what is the potential of the sector. Talk about those things, right? But they just want to like highlight their company, do promotional stuff. That doesn't work. That is not PR at all.
Priyanka and Praveen, the other question that comes to my mind is, for a startup, what is a good time to start doing PR?
Yeah,
What?
I think there is no good time. There is always now. There is no time like you start. It works two ways, right? You start a PR and then you get traction, or you get traction first and then start a PR. So it's a chicken and egg situation in this case for any startup, because for an early stage startup, it is very, very important that you start really early. In everything, you start reaching out to investors early. You start reaching out to your audience early, so that you get attraction. Because if you don't do it, you will never know how it's going to help you. I have got
Right.
clients, very early pre-revenue startups. They always ask me this question: should we start, Priyanka? Should we start now? I said, you should start immediately. I'm not saying for the sake of getting more clients, but if you want to make an impact, why not tell your story now? Because see, ideas everyone has. Execution is the problem. So if you don't execute your thoughts, USP right now through, amplify your story right now, someone else will. Someone else will have that first mover advantage, saying that we were the first to solve this problem, and there will be no footprints for you, digital footprints for you. So you need, if you are doing something exceptionally different, you start now. If you're a Me Too company, I would suggest you build on the media attention that other companies or your competition has got. You build on that. If you are a disruptor, please start now. And this is something I always tell my clients, and it has worked. So, for example, we have a client which is India's first revenue-based finance company, and also it is my first client. So when we were discussing, I knew the founder Bhavik Basa for a really long time. As a journalist, I had interviewed him in his previous roles. So now this helped me get work as well. So Bhavik said we are the first revenue-based finance, and revenue-based finance, nobody knew what net-based finance is, or what RBF is, what alternative finance is. And I'm proud of Bhavik. I'm proud of myself to have been able to create that impact, that now in 3 years time, revenue based finance is a very well known term. We have the client GetVantage has over 1,500 startups, or more than that, taking up revenue based finance from GetVantage, right, to meet their working capital needs. Now, we did this story through different explainers. We did not ever do the story doing a Q&A. We did with explainers. What RBF is, we tried to explain, because it was a very new segment in the fintech. It was a very new concept. There were players in the US who were already unicorns, but In India, it was a very, and it targeted the SMEs to start to begin with, help with their working capital needs. Why we need a revenue based finance was the story we told. Why we need. So
Right.
this is how you do.
The challenge with most of the PR professionals who handle startups is they come up with new solutions or new concepts, new business models, and it takes time for the media to also buy into those concepts.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right. So, and Praveen, you have been regularly writing on LinkedIn, Priyanka, and you both have been regularly writing about setting the expectations right about what entrepreneurs must understand, how PR works, how media functions. So, can you give us some key takeaways? Praveen, I'll begin with you. Some key takeaways that startup entrepreneurs should know about PR.
I would start by adding my 2 cents to what Priyanka has said. To when should a startup start PR engagement? I would say that a startup or an established brand should start their PR engagement on the day when they start connect with their audience, and that is day zero, right?
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
if the audience doesn't know you exist, what would you do? How would you do your business? It's very simple, and that's where I would like to highlight. You know, PR overall is a very simple practice. We tend to make it complicated to differentiate ourselves from other agencies or from other brands. It's very simple. You need a tool or a set of tools to connect with your audience. The key understanding that clients need is PR is not advertising, and PR also needs a budget. Now, these two things will look conflicting with each other, but they are not. Why is PR not advertising? Because PR people don't buy space anywhere, and that's why we can't guarantee anything. That's the
Correct.
first thing. But we still need a budget for our activities because we need to pay our sources, our resources, and for that the clients need to earmark a budget. It can't be pittance. It has to be a substantial amount which will provide for the services of the agency, where they don't have to worry about, or they don't have to worry about bagging new clients every other day to make their ends meet, because that's where the whole PR ecosystem gets corrupted. I don't know if I'm making sense at all.
No, you are. I will agree with the fact that PR professionals need to keep on doing new business development, and there could be different school of thoughts. Where one school thinks that we need to continuously do NBDs so that our top line keeps on growing. We are able to pay better to our employees and provide better facilities, move into a bigger office and things like that. And Priyanka, I would like you to weigh in. You have covered the startup space for over a decade. You have seen new companies coming up. You've seen entrepreneurs flourishing from like garage setup to a big office setup. And
Correct.
the first thing that they usually hire in their team is a marketing guy to sell services, products, whatever. But and PR is usually a second thought. This is how do you bridge that gap in understanding of why startups require PR?
Yeah, absolutely. So you were right that there is always seen as a function, right? And it's a second function. But I always tell my clients that PR is a very important, very very important tool, right? So I always tell them, "जो दिखता है वो बिकता है," and you need to be seen in the stories because these are not paid stories or these are not sponsored content. I mean, you can do PR through sponsored content as well. I mean, you can buy the whole page, an advertorial, do anything, whatever you like, spend whatever amount you can, but you will never be able to gain the trust, or you will never be able to tell a credible story, because that will be a one-sided story that you are talking about. You will be just tom-tomming about your company, but that is not what PR is, right? I mean, the story is, I always, when we say, when we talk, we don't talk articles, we say stories. I always tell them, I always remind them that these are stories that needs to be told. And as a journalist, I always tell them that there has to be a balance. Even if you are talking about your company, there has to be a balance in what are the challenges in the sector. You can't just say one side of the story. My basic problem with clients is that you need to understand, you need to trust the person. If you are hiring a PR agency, you first need to trust them. Again, what Praveen said about the budgets, people want, they can spend millions on an ad, on a marketing, because they think that there is an instant ROI they see in their sales funnel, or in their outreach.
Praveen, how do you answer the ROI question? That I am spending this much money in advertising, and in a week or a month, however long the campaign is, I'm able to calculate ROI. In PR, how do you persuade the clients?
Honestly, PR doesn't have a direct ROI because we are dealing with trust of the audience. We can't influence sales, so to say. And by ROI, everyone wants to understand how much sale will I make if this story comes out. That's not going to happen because it's a transactional relationship that we have. It's more about building that trust with media and through media with your target audience. That happens by and by. It's not a one day affair. And that's why you need to be consistent. You have to be in for the long haul. So, to answer the question on ROI, I tell them how it is point blank. I don't beat around the bush. I don't tell them that you will make this much sale or that, this or that will happen. I tell them very frankly that don't look at it from an ROI perspective. Look at it from trust perspective. And by trust, what I mean is I can help them understand how we are going to build that trust. That trust is going to be built by being on platforms which are frequented by your audience, be it traditional media, be it social media, be it any other platform. If your audience is there, you have to be there talking of quality stuff. And suppose, say for example, if a quality story comes out in midday in Mumbai, vis-a-vis a rubbish story coming out in Times of India in Delhi, what will the audience trust more? And
Absolutely.
why would we look at midday as one of the platforms? Because your audience would be reading that newspaper more. It has to be, all the dots should be joined together to look at PR as a service.
True, true. Now, my next question is related to skilling. It's a massive factor because of the digital transformation that is happening across the board. And so, did it ever occur to you that because you're shifting from journalism to PR, you should do any kind of a course? Or was the enthusiasm of the founders that you interviewed throughout your career rubbed off so much that it gave you a perspective of how things would be, and you straight away jumped into it?
Yes, of course. Why upskilling is very important. Very rightly said upskilling is important. But I say PR is not different than a journalist. PR should not be a different personality. It should have a personality of a journalist. You need to think like a journalist. You need to execute like a journalist, because you are as good as your last story. You did your story yesterday. It was good. Had got impact. But what today, right? You have to always think about story ideas. You need to think about so this will not come with any upskilling for that matter. This is creativity. Now you need to read more. I always tell my team that please read as much as you can. Research on a particular topic, so you can only upskill, because we are not in a sector that where you need to do certain tasks you're doing manually. You will do automation. It's not happening this way, right? The only upskilling you can do is by investing in yourself, by reading much about the company, ask questions. The best stories come after asking very relevant questions. You can't just ask what's happening in your sector. That's not the question, right? You need to be very glued into the sector. You need to know what exactly is happening from a regulation point of view, market point of view, from investment point of view. You have to do a 360-degree research. For me, I think for any PR agency, this is one major challenge, that they always think we are a post fan. We are not doing a post fan's job, right? We need to create. I think we do more work than journalists do. We do more research. We have to create very precise or very concise pitches that would appeal to them.
I just want to add one point here. Coming from a senior journalist weighs a lot.
Yeah. And And I think what are the other tools that we need to, I always was skeptical about. I'm not skeptical about ChatGPT or AI because they are never going to take away your work. They're not going to take away your work, your creativity, your brains, right? They will just, this is an enabler. ChatGPT or any AI tool is your enabler. You should use it efficiently, and but creativity is yours. I mean, the thoughts are yours. You can just use it to brush up the language, maybe something like that. But the thoughts are yours, right? So that is a second point, that you use technology very efficiently. Everyone should know. Coming into PR, I was only working on Word for all my life. I never knew how to do Excel sheets. I didn't know how to make presentations, proposals. The very first proposals were in a document, and I used to type it and send it to the. But then I realized you need to, look. So in the consultancy world, presentation matters. Now the beautification matters. So I started learning that, and I'm not very pro yet, but I try to do some Excel sheets and do some PowerPoint presentations. But my team does it. Then another thing is, I think we should not stick to just print media, digital media, right? As Praveen rightly said in the beginning, that media is changing, the landscape has changed a lot, and it's going to change further. So we need, as PR agencies, we need to think ahead. We need to go 2 steps ahead of what the media, the publications are doing. I personally don't endorse sponsored content, but that's the bread and butter of publications as well. Once in a while, if you want to do promotional stuff, you can use sponsored content as a tool. What we need to do is understand how the things are changing and adapt accordingly. So that is upskilling. Upskilling is not getting a digital marketing course at ISB, or you do an IIM executive program. That's in my sense works. I mean, it just adds a vanity. It's just a vanity. It just adds to your profile. But the real job is by doing it.
True. Doing is actual learning, right?
Doing execution is actual learning. You
Yeah.
execute, you'll fail, right? You'll fail once, you'll fail twice. The
Mhm.
fourth time or third time, you will get to a point, and then you'll get to a point, and then you will master
Yeah.
it, right?
Yes.
And for any job, forget PR, forget journalism, forget any. I always think and believe that hard work pays. You have to do it consistently. That mundane work, day in and day out, because we have started our careers writing press releases, rehashing press releases, rehashing
Yes.
the stories, and we have done that day in and day out.
Praveen, what is your view on doing executive courses or online courses which can help in upskilling?
As Priyanka rightly mentioned, they add to the vanity that you have. If you like to have a lot of certificates in the closet, go ahead and do it. But upskilling to me means whether you are doing the basics right or not. By basics, and I will go back to my previous statement that PR is very simple. That's not complicated. And for that, to do our job better, we have to do the basics right.
Yeah.
Study the business,
Yeah.
talk to the client, be ready to ask tough questions without any fear or prejudice. And if you do all of these together in the right fashion, you would be sorted as a PR professional. One more thing that I would like to add here is one needs to learn about marketing. Although you are doing public relations and you have learned by either practice or by education, you have learned about PR. You might not have learned about marketing. Why is it important to learn about marketing is that you are going to work with marketers for n number of years, maybe all your career. If you don't understand the place they come from, you would not be able to provide the right services to them. It's very important to understand their place of thinking and then guide them accordingly. So that's actually closes the loop. You know your sector well, you need to understand their sector well.
Yeah, I think, can I add to this point? So I completely agree. PR is not a standalone job. You are working, when you're working with a client, you need to not only work with the marketers, not the marketing department, but also the finance, also the sales team, right? It has to be a combination. Like, you cannot work in silo. Praveen, I'm agreeing with what you're saying. Marketing and PR works in tandem. Like, it works together. need to collaborate. Their lingos may be different, but the objective is same, to amplify your the company's brand image. So, and we tell this through storytelling, and they tell that through storytelling, but in a different way, right? If you have to do an effective PR, you need to be on the client side, right? You need to think like a client. You need to think like what the CFO is thinking or the CEO is thinking. Otherwise, it's very difficult. You cannot do that. You cannot do a proper job of amplifying the objective of the company, right? What they're trying to say. It will be
Just to
all
add
over.
here, you have to wear two hats. While working with clients, you have to wear two hats. One is of the client and the other one is of the journalist, right? And that has to go on simultaneously.
Yes, absolutely.
That's where the nuance comes into.
I think we keep on juggling those hats. I think there was a book also, no, on this, wearing different hats in different situations.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. I mean, you wear different hats, right? You juggle. You are not wearing it. You're juggling different hats. There will come a point when few hats will fall, but that's okay. You need to keep juggling.
right. And my last question to you is an advice that you would like to give fellow journalists, fellow PR professionals about how they can grow in their own career.
Dhiren, I think we need to discuss the challenges that PRs face. While that's very important. See, as the landscape is changing, I have some feedback. I'll not say this is critical, but this is a genuine feedback for journalists. As a journalist myself, I need to give a very genuine feedback to the newcomers, like the newbies in the journalism segment, that please do not rely just on the quotes, right? I mean, as a journalist, your job is to ask questions and then follow up questions. So I don't see that happening anymore. That's something I want to tell fellow journalists, that I know that you are overwhelmed. The day starts very early. There's a pressure of breaking news, and all that stuff is there. And so is ours. We also start early, and handling 20-30 clients is not a easy job, but it's a symbiotic relationship. We need you, you need us. That's no other way. So why not exist peacefully? Maybe do more interviews with the client to understand more about the company.
Yes. I think empathy, compassion, and homework, all these things have to come together on either side, whether you are in journalism or you are in PR.
Yeah,
One piece of advice that I would leave the audience with is that don't be in a hurry. When you are overwhelmed, when you are not confident of what you need to deliver, you tend to hurry up into things. Client ने पूछा कि मुझे एक out of the box idea चाहिए. Don't be in a hurry to offer that idea then and there. Come back, prepare, study, ask questions, and then go ahead and give that idea.
I think
Same
issue is
applies to journalism
the
as well.
deadline is always yesterday.
Same applies to journalism as well.
Yeah.
So you don't need to be in a hurry for anything. Time is at your disposal. The world will push you to produce things faster than you can ever have. But still, take your time. Prepare yourself.
There are two school of thoughts here. One is that the deadline is yesterday. We have all worked through it in our news profession, in our PR profession. And there's the slow movement, which tells exactly what Praveen is saying, that take your time, get things right. There is an interesting quote in Ryan Holiday's book, Discipline is Destiny, where he emphasizes the importance of getting small things right, where a war was lost because of a nail, because the nail came off the shoe of the horse and the horse could not run, the message could not be delivered, and the general could not act on the intelligence that the soldier was supposed to bring, and therefore they lost a war because of a nail.
Thank you so much. Sorry for all those technical glitches. And these technical glitches happens in your PR industry as well.
All the time.
All the time. So we just need to, like you said, upskill. You need to, upskill and understanding how technology works. And
Yes.
and how
And
it's
there was an
disrupting.
interesting bit which you said about creating fancy PPTs and all those things. I was speaking with a corporate friend of mine, and she works in one of the big tech companies, and she said that in our organization we have done away with PPTs. We only want to
Super.
focus on the ideas and not the presentation.
See, my only
Yeah.
problem
That's
And
how
so
true.
I found
you might have fancy PPTs, you might
Hmm.
do a lot of Excel sheets, whatever, but if there is no end result, that doesn't matter. Those PPTs don't matter. So execution is important. How
Yes.
efficient you're executing, that is important. Then you're not making those slides of what have you done, how much have you done. So the impact will show. And I always tell clients that, see, this is a slow process. I always tell that advertising is like your, day trading, right? You will get instant results. But PR is like your SIPs. It's like your mutual fund SIPs. You have to continuously do that for many years to be able to, build that image for your audience and for other stakeholders. So that is, you have to be consistently doing that.
On presentation, if I can
Consistency
add
is
something,
important.
we all know that the one great example of doing away with presentation is Amazon. A presentation fails to explain the whole idea, right? If there is no presenter there, and if you email it to whether that person is getting the idea or not, we can make out. Nobody can understand what idea is being communicated through that presentation, because all
That's
that
right.
presentation contains is fancy pictures and bullet points. But a memo can present the idea in as many words as possible, right?
I
So
Yeah,
want
that
so
your
data,
is more
opinion.
explanatory in nature.
speaks. So data speaks, right? If you have a good set of data points, if you're not able to read that data, you need to decipher that data for your audience, right? If you can't do that effectively, then those presentations don't matter at all.
Yeah.
It's
Data
more
seems
about, yes,
persuade.
correct, absolutely.
Most of the presentations are given in a room, in the boardroom or anywhere else, and most of the time the decision makers are not present. Now, what happens is later on, after the meetings are over, these presentations are sent on email or WhatsApp to the decision makers. Now, whether the decision maker is getting the right picture or not is something we would not really know ever. Now, the best alternative to this is share the Word file with all the data, all the pictures, all whatever you need to share, so that the final decision maker gets the right picture. You might have given the best of presentation in the boardroom, in the meeting room, but if the decision maker is not getting that, what's the point? And we spend so much time, so many resources, human resources, on making presentations. For what use?
You need to
Absolutely.
analyze. You need to just analyze. So that is important. And for clients, they don't want to share a lot of data because they fear that there is that competition might steal the data or might use the data for their advantage. But it is not that. It's not. It's never the case.
Why?
The listed companies have to give out their audited results. They have to share each and every development. So for startups, I believe I need to tell them that please do share more. You can't say we are not a listed company, we are not bound to share. It's completely up to you. If you don't share, you will never be able to reach out to your audience in an effective manner. So please emphasize on data.
I have one very tricky question for both of you. Whenever you suggest any campaign ideas to clients in your pitches, and you are not onboarded, but those ideas are inspired, taken, copied, stolen, whatever you want to call it, what is the way to deal with it?
Okay, so this is a pre-onboarding, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I have made it a practice that I don't share original campaign ideas. I will just give them, ideas that are hypothetical. So the campaign ideas, exact campaign ideas.
But doesn't it affect your
No.
doesn't it affect your effectivity when you're okay? Praveen, how do you see pre-onboarding? Yes, once you are onboarded, then it becomes
doesn't
like
affect.
dharma for you to provide as many original ideas as
No,
possible.
I tell them clearly that we have seen these instances where ideas have been shared and they execute the clients execute it with their in-house PR team or marketing team. I mean, they can do that. They can always do that, but they will never be able to build their relationships with media like we can do, because this is our job. This is our job. We are working on this day in and out, and I will not say I know the CFO's role. So, like, he is an expert there. I am an expert here. I'm an expert in PR, and I'm an expert in story ideation. So they can take that idea for one time maybe, but not every time. So best way to deal with them is don't give original ideas before boarding, before and after that you can always share authentic ideas, and they will understand. I mean, if the client is genuine, if the client is not very fussy, they will understand. And if they don't understand, then it's better not to work with such clients.
That also requires a lot of courage to say no to a client.
No, you need to tell no to a lot of people. You need to tell no to some journalists on the stories that they're working that we don't want to participate, or please understand the situation. Say no to the clients. Say no to your employees at times that you're not performing. Please, look for another job. But
Praveen, what do you have to say about ideas being copied and without the agency getting on board?
That's a very good question, Dhiren. It's a reality. It's something that has been happening in the field for so many years, and it will continue to happen. How I handle it is by telling the client that we are still outsiders. We have still not entered your system, and we know very little about you. What I do is I ask a lot of questions, insightful questions to them. If they answer those questions in as many details, then I present to them the possibilities. I still don't call them ideas, they are still possibilities. And if they want to copy those possibilities with some other agencies, execute those ideas, so called ideas, they can very well do that. Nobody can stop them. But from my side, I provide the possibilities to them. I tell them how I'm going to execute those without giving too many details, because every person, every agency has their own way of handling a given idea. And I know how clients function. What they would do is they will seek the best of ideas and they will go to the cheapest agency asking them, why don't you implement these ideas for us? And that's where the whole engagement starts failing from day one. If they want to do it, they will do it. But that's not going to happen. If an idea has come from me, I have thought of that idea looking at my wherewithal, my resources. A cheaper agency may or may not be able to implement it in the first place. You are going to come back to me.
Final outcome becomes like a Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've taken an idea from someone, you've taken some design from someone else, execution is going totally dancing on different tune. That happens.
Absolutely. The beauty lies in execution. And if you are not getting getting the execution right, the out of the box ideas that you were seeking were of no use. And that's where the challenge of the inbuilt challenge in the whole ecosystem comes into play. This is a big problem area. So I want to tell this to all my, PR peers that we are the voice. If there is a challenge, if there is something that is bothering industry as a whole, please come and support that voice in numbers. You can't be hypocrite. You can't be a diplomatic. Let's not play that diplomacy when it comes solving a major problem that affects every one of us.
True.
Of course, one of such problem is late payments. People hold on to payments for n number of months, and there have been so many episodes where people have paid 50% of what they were owed. Some even not that.
Yeah.
But Praveen, that is a problem every service provider, every enabler, every B2B company faces. I think one product company, service companies usually face this problem. And I think there should be a startup that needs to solve this problem. This is a major problem.
Why I mentioned this was that while other industries would be tackling this issue through their associations, we in the PR industry are not taking it head on.
Right.
We are skirting
Doesn't the PRCAI take it up?
There is nothing that's happening there, no? On that front, nothing is happening. No discourse at all. Of course, we hear a lot of noise at conferences, but no action on the ground. Are we going to blacklist any clients? Have you heard of any blacklisted client because of late payments or no payments?
Several years ago, I think there was a company which wasn't paying, but I think this is an ongoing issue and it should be tackled head on.
Like in advertising association blacklist people, blacklist organization for not paying on time. Or if there is any default, they can take these organizations to NCLT as well. Can we do this? It's something that we have to think about. Some concrete action is required there.
True. Even if you blacklist a company, there would be individual contributors such as yourself who may, take a kinder view and take that thing up. But yes, a blacklist will help in the sense that whenever any agency or a freelancer or an entrepreneur is pitching for their business, they would be aware that this is what you're getting into.
Absolutely. And before pitching, we can go on to these associations website and check for the blacklisted clients and then decide whether you want to pitch or not. It sets an example for companies that you can't take your PR partner for granted. Thankfully, it has not happened with me or with any of the organizations that I've represented earlier, because I have always insisted on advance payments, right? So it may not be 100% advance because clients would also be a little shaky in doing that. But even if 60 or 70% is being paid in advance, you're sorted to a large extent. And that's also tells you the intention of the client that they are going to pay.
Priyanka and Praveen, thank you so much for taking out time. I'm sure that the audiences will take a lot from this conversation coming from two very senior journalists and PR professionals who have seen the world from both the sides. And you can provide a lot of mentorship not only to PR professionals, to journalists, but also to startup entrepreneurs who are starting their journey as well. Thank you for joining us.